So thanks for being on Streaming for Vengeance. Let's dive right into the whole AC/DC thing, because I have to ask, how does it feel to be part of a project that has topped the charts in 18 countries plus?
Well, it's actually blowing my mind. I mean, when we did the record, it's going to be a good record. I mean, it's the boys and strong songs and everything, and but you never know when you're doing it how it's going to be received by everybody. So it's kind of blowing me away that it's jumped to #1 in a lot of the world in a pretty short time. So thank God for them. They've actually almost saved 2020. They've given a lot of people a lot of hope, and everybody's out there rocking and banging their heads. So yay.
No, absolutely. Well, you've hung out with these guys for years. Do you think they actually have any expectations when they release a record, or is it just like, whatever, this is what we're going to give you. If you accept it, then everyone's happy?
I think, they go in with the perception that they just want to do what's making them happy and what they love and dig. I mean, they just love doing it and recording and playing live for their fans. So I don't think they go in with any preconceptions. But they're, I'm sure, overjoyed with the reception of this record and how happy the fans are. So,
Well, as a diehard fan, I must really flag October 1st, because that was the day we heard 10 seconds of Shot in the Dark.
Right.
And I'll never forget it. It's one of those moments, like, you remember where you were when AC/DC launched their new record during COVID, and we heard 10 seconds, and it just, a shiver just went up my spine. It was just such a heartwarming thing.
Yeah, me as well. It had been almost 2 years since we had recorded it, and you start wondering, with the pandemic going on and the record in the can, like, is it even going to see the light of day this year? So it was pretty cool to see that little glimmer of hope. Oh yeah, here we go.
Well, like, it really felt like it was real, because the only thing that was leaked, and I not to get like digging into the weeds with this, but it was like a year ago, someone had taken a shot of Phil Rudd in Vancouver. And the band's not saying, nobody's saying a thing. It's like, what's Phil doing in Vancouver? And then there was a shot of Phil and Cliff or something. So it's like the band paying attention to this gossip and like all this stuff that's getting leaked. Do they know what's happening?
Well, all of a sudden they knew it was happening when the pictures got leaked. But, I think their intention at the time was to go in quietly into a studio and see what they've got. They didn't know, Brian was fresh back in the band, after his hearing stuff. So that, how's that going to work? Cliff had said he wanted to retire. Phil had his problems. So, putting that all together must have been a logistic nightmare. And I think they wanted to keep it under wraps. And if it worked out, give the fans a great surprise present, because, at the end of that tour, it's kind of all up in the air. Are they going to carry on? Is there a band to carry on? So they wanted to keep it in wraps. So I think it really disappointed it that it got leaked. But, they're a huge monster band. So, how can it not?
There's paparazzi everywhere.
Yeah, paparazzi.
Well, like how hard is it, you think, for the band to be stealth and for you to be stealth? Because you have to, everything's got to be, it's like Fort Knox. You can't say a thing. You can't no poker face.
Yeah. Well, for sure it's tough. And, the band all come to a city that they don't live in. And, they're going to be out to restaurants and wandering the streets and all that. So they're going to get spotted, and it's going to come out. But, if they're spotted in the streets or a restaurant, that could be them doing anything up for a visit or whatever, to have the pictures outside the studio there and the balcony was kind of, all right. Cat's out of the bag.
Right. When did you actually press the stop button on this? Like, when was it in the can officially? And how long was it sitting there for then?
Well, I think that was July, August. We were in Vancouver, 2018. Then Brendan and I went down to LA and mixed for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then they sat on it for a little bit. And then I think Brendan and Angus got together and did some more editing and a couple other remix things. So I'm not exactly sure when it was over, but I would guess, October-ish of, I guess it was still 2018.
That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
What is your role though? Like what does the band want from you, Mike Fraser? And how how far ahead of time does that happen?
Well, my role is as an engineer. So basically I take, kind of my direction from Brendan and the band, but, in working with the band for so long, and this is Brendan and I's third record together. So we kind of knew what we're doing, so my role is, going in and capturing the sounds, making sure everything's sounding good and getting to tape, really good. And I'm always got to be ready to go, because when the band's ready to record, they want to go now. There's no sort of, hey, let's try one, make sure the sounds are good. No, when they play, they want to play. They go out there, they're on fire, and it's up to me to capture the fire, So that's kind of my role in it. And as far as pre-planning, when I walked into the studio for the first time, it was probably in July. I had no idea what form of the band was showing up. As far as I knew, it was just going to be Angus, and it was up in the air, who's playing on this. So I didn't know what was up until I walked in and saw all these familiar faces, and it was a big huggy love fest for the next half hour. High five. It was awesome. Yeah.
The whole Brian situation, I think, disturbed the entire AC/DC community. How did that kind of figure itself out with this record?
I don't know much of that, because I'm not privy to what's going on when they're not in the studio. I know Brian walked in totally raring and ready to go. Lots of energy, happy, just, so excited, like a kid to be there doing it again. So, there was no problems at all.
Well, as a fan and listening, those first 10 seconds, I really felt the warmth that Mutt brought to the band on For Those About to Rock. That's where it really took me back to. Do you hear that?
For sure. On this record, I hear a lot of sort of similarities to some of the older records. Obviously the older Brian records, so it's just kind of a neat journey for me, all the different sort of sounds. I can, maybe imagine that maybe some of those were written with Mal from back in the little older days, because they were all bits and pieces that Mal and Angus had written over the years. And Angus had a big pile of tapes and notes and everything from all those. So, Malcolm's hand was definitely in on a lot of these songs for sure.
Yeah. So how was the studio mood around that? Because that is like the most, when he passed, the first thing I thought of is this is one of the main people that taught generations of kids how to play the guitar. He was this rhythm guitar master, all these basic leads and everything. It's wow. It was really, man, that was a tough day. There's been a lot of tough days, but that was one of them.
Yeah, for sure. This one, you always still feel Mal in the studio, like he's sitting on your shoulder or looking over, but it's more in a melancholy way. When we did the previous record, I think it was felt a lot more because it was the first record without Mal. But all the guys are great family and great players. So, we get into the studio and we just get to business and do what we need to do, and, we're definitely always, tipping our glass of tea or whatever to Mal, because he is always there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When did you first meet AC/DC then? When did that topic come up?
Well, that was back in the 90s when they came and hired Bruce Fairbairn to finish off Razor's Edge. They had recorded a lot of the record previously with their brother George, and they needed to do some vocals and some guitar solos. So they came to Vancouver 90-ish, I forget the exact year. So that was the first time I met them, and totally blown away. You know, I've always been a huge fan. So to actually have them come into our studio in Vancouver and sit down and watch them play was just such a thrill.
Well, really, Bruce and his team, which obviously you were part of, really elevated their career. Like they've really kickstarted it back again. Razor's Edge was massive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, I mean, the band had Thunderstruck, so you know that for sure launched that record. And you know, when we recorded that song, I had no idea it was going to be kind of become the iconic song. You know, it's up there with their For Those About to Rock and Back in Black and Highway to Hell. It's like, you know, it's one of their iconic songs, and you had no idea it was going to do that while you're recording it. You know, it was a great song, but you know, again, you never know what the perception of that song is going to be until it gets out there.
Okay, so you met the band during the Razor's Edge era. So when were you introduced then to AC/DC? Give me your Bon Scott kind of stories going way back.
Well, going way back, I think
as a fan.
Yeah, no, I think it was maybe 78. We were going to see, it was a big Aerosmith fan. Aerosmith came to Vancouver to play, and this band called AC/DC was opening up for them. And you know, we hadn't heard of the AC/DC, and in our day, AC/DC meant could go either way, you know, kind of thing. So, but we ended up going to see the opening band, and we're just blown away. We're just like, holy crap, who the hell are these guys? Man, this Aerosmith show is going to be great. But unfortunately, I think that was right in the middle of their worst, sort of darkest drug-induced days, and their concert wasn't very good. So I think we ended up leaving early, but I went straight to a record store and found everything I could on this band AC/DC. And from that day, I was a huge fan.
So how many times did you see Bon Scott perform live then?
Well, that was probably the only time, and I didn't realize it till many years later. I thought, oh yeah, well, you know, what tour was that? And I think it was probably the Highway to Hell tour, if it was 78.
Yeah, 78, 79.
Yeah. So I got to see Bon Scott, but at the time I didn't appreciate it because, you know, I know nothing about them, you know, and little did I know that I'd never get another chance to witness them. So,
well, it must be really strange as an engineer / producer to have a relationship with Brian Johnson, but like grow up with the replacement for Bon Scott. You know what I mean? Like you're there from the get-go, not producing them, but at least, you know what I mean? Like your heart and soul is like following them, I presume.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Brian and I are very good friends. When we're together doing a record, you know, on days off, we go golfing. You know, I've been down, hung out in his house for, you know, a weekend and that, and off running around in his cars. And, you know, when we're together, we're very good friends for sure.
You're truly blessed. You're truly blessed.
He's a great guy, though. I mean, I said to Brian many times, you know, when he's done, you know, in his musical career and wants to hang his hat up, he's got a long career as a comedian, because he's one of those guys that just tell a joke and have you on the floor laughing. You know, he's quite the guy.
Can we kind of follow that trajectory and talk about Back in Black and For Those About to Rock as a fan?
Mm-hmm.
For you? What do those records mean? What do they mean right now?
Well, you know, I love Highway to Hell when it came out. It was like, wow, how can they ever beat this? And then they beat it with Back in Black. I mean, every song to me is perfection. You know, that's still the record you look to when you're looking at, you know, where did the peak happen? And that was the record for me. Like every song on that record is amazing and well crafted.
Does the band like look back, because there was a peak, and with every band, whether you're Led Zeppelin or Elvis or like the Beatles, right? Like, does it haunt a band of AC/DC stature thinking that, oh, we got to try to beat this thing, and obviously it's unbeatable? Mm-hmm. Does that ever come up?
No, not at all. And I think with them, it's, you know, quite the opposite. They just go in and do what they want to do. And how they want to do it. I don't think they ever look back and say, oh, we got to make it like this, or we got to beat that, or we got, you know, what's done is done, and they're always moving forward and doing what they love to do. And I know they hope the fans love it as well.
Now, I mentioned I love the comparison with Power Up to For Those About to Rock, but I wore this because fans, purists like myself, love these two records. And it's when the band obviously just grabbed the production reins, and no disrespect, because I play this all the time. It was like the stock market crashed. It's like you have this peak and then these two records just, yeah, it was really sad as a fan to see that. Were you a fan of Flick and Fly at all?
I was a fan of everything they did. You know, some records I like a couple, you know, 2-3 songs on, and the rest are okay. And some records I like all the songs, you know, for different reasons. So, you know, I don't have a favorite record, and I don't have an unfavorite record. You know, they are all great little journeys when you throw them on.
Last kind of question around this era. Did you ever meet Harry Vande and George Young? Because they produced Blow Up Your Video before you guys kind of took the reins.
Yeah. Never met Harry, but, you know, of course I did Stiff Upper Lip with George. So yeah, got to hang with George quite a lot. And he was quite the guy too. He's another one that's sorely missed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And the ride after the Razor's Edge was just, you know what I mean? It just kept going up and up and up. What are some of your highlights from that era?
Well, from that era, like, you know, every record I get to hang with the band for a few months, you know, because I don't see much of them when we're not working together. So every record I get to hang with them, and every hang is always a great time. And it's just, for me, I always have such respect for them that, you know, like everybody says they make the same record. Well, you know, they don't really, you know, they don't change their way. They don't change what works for them. And they put all their heart and soul into everything they do. So it's always very uplifting working with people like that. You know, it's always, everything's always positive, and, you know, we're all a big team and we're on it, and everybody's putting in 100%. So that's always great energy to be around. And with them also being, you know, such nice human beings, you know, it's just an experience of the lifetime working with them.
It's funny you mentioned that, because it was one of my questions. Do you take it personally when people say that they haven't changed their sound in decades, and like you're the one that's kind of guiding the sound?
You know, not really.
I know.
You know, I know what everybody means. Like, you know, they think AC/DC is like a 3-chord band. Well, you know, if you listen to their songs, there's not 3 chords in it. There's more than that. But, you know, that's their sound. Like, you know, I think some bands, you know, have great success in a direction, and then they get bored with it. So they're changing it, or they're trying to chase what's popular there. You know, AC/DC does it because they love doing it. They're not doing it for money, fame, or anything, you know? So that's kind of the difference. So, you know, they